So at the start of 2020, I began working as a tattoo apprentice. So naturally, tattoos became a huge part of my life, and I wanted to incorporate this within my art practice and explore how I could combine the world of fine art and tattooing. So I started first semester by looking at sculptor Fabio Viali, who works with a combination of marble, classicism and tattoos. In a lot of his work, Fabio focuses on the classic iconography and the complex code of Russian criminal tattoos. He describes his tattooed sculptures, this is a quote by the way, to present a meeting between life and death, between the sacred and the profane. A combination/relationship between these two sets results in a solid bond that creates energy. The preconception we have of classical beauty and the hardness inherent in a certain type of criminal tattoo provoke gasp and wonder. As well as Fabio, I also began to look at artists such as Lloyd Callard and Alexei Kondovok, who also combine iconic art pieces with elements from modern life. From here on, I became really interested in making my own classical art with a modern twist. Here I created pen drawings of two classic sculptures. You got Michelangelo's David and Venus de Milo. Here I mainly focused on making the tattoos decorative and looking good, basically, and also experimenting with how they flow with contours of the body. If it wasn't for the fact I was working from home, I'd have really enjoyed to make physical models of these and actually tattoo them physically, like with my tattoo machine. However, I really do still like these 2D renders of these 3D objects, as I think it adds an interesting element to my work. I also really enjoyed the high contrast and the small intricacies, as it kind of felt like I was tattooing at work again. It had very similar elements. I did end up trying to tattoo a little plaster sculpture of Venus de Milo as well, however it proved quite difficult to get the tattoo ink to actually go into the plaster, as it wasn't as soft as skin, as you can probably see in the photos. For my next piece, I chose to draw a statue of Zeus and Hera. For this, I focused on the figure of Zeus and created his tattoo designs based off his own mythology instead of just being purely aesthetic like before. This time around, I was just really working on meaning. So his body is covered with his own symbols, such as the lightning bolt, the eagle, the bull, and you've also got the oak and olive leaves. As well as members of his own family, for example, you got Athena and Hera, both appear on his legs. So Athena's his daughter and Hera's his wife/sister. There's also several tattoos that reference direct myths, like the fly on his hand, which is symbolic of his first wife. It was prophesied that Zeus's first wife, Metis, would bear two children, a daughter Athena, and also a son who would be the most powerful, and eventually overthrow Zeus. So when Zeus heard this, he wasn't very happy, so he turned Metis, who was pregnant with Athena at the time, into a fly and swallowed her. Once swallowed, Metis transformed back into a person and somehow lived in Zeus's head, where she started weaving a cloak and hammering a helmet for her unborn daughter, which gave Zeus such a headache that he ordered Hephaestus, I think his name is, to cleave open his skull, from which Athena sprang fully grown. Hence also the axe tattooed on the side of Zeus's head, as well as the crown of olive leaves, which could be concealing some kind of scar from this. The tattoo on his stomach also highlights the myth of Typhon, who attempted to overthrow Zeus for the supremacy of the cosmos. The two fought a crazy battle, which Zeus finally won with the aid of his thunderbolts, which you can see in the design. There's a thunderbolt going through the figure of Typhon. The tattoo I designed is based on an image of Typhon on a pottery jar, which combined the art of sculpture, tattoo and ceramics all into one image. Moving on from this, I wanted to keep my work embedded in symbolic research, as I really enjoyed this aspect of it, but instead I wanted to change from tattooing sculptures to tattooing famous paintings. I decided to first try to ink up arguably the most famous painting, the Mona Lisa. At first I tried to attempt to paint the Mona Lisa, but it became very clear very quickly that I didn't quite muster the talent of old Leonardo, so instead I decided to digitally draw these tattoos on top of an image of the original. This allowed me to draw the designs out a lot more accurately, and I think they read better as tattoos this way too. Again, I designed the tattoos based on the actual person, in this case Italian noblewoman Lisa del Giocondo, who is thought to be who the Mona Lisa was modelled on. I wanted to stick with really recognisable pieces, so next I chose to make a tattooed version of the Birth of Venus by Sandro Botticelli. I brought a poster of the original and tried to draw the designs directly onto it, but the result wasn't as bold and striking as I thought I could portray digitally, so I scrapped this idea. So for this one, I adorned the goddess Venus in coloured tattoos instead of the black and grey that I'd been doing previously. I just feel like it matched the vibrant tones of the painting a lot better and kind of looked a bit more cohesive. I also introduced the art of Japanese tattooing as well, in the form of these large detailed bodysuits tattooed on the figures on the left. These are the wind god Zephyr, the dude, and Aura, who's the woman, who is the personification of a light breeze. I tried to capture these windy elements within the bodysuits. Here are just a couple drawings from beforehand, me trying out the digital versus the pen. As I started to marry the world of tattoos and find out more and more, I decided I wanted to take it a step further and reimagine an entire gallery space that I could create virtually. So I began to look at the National Gallery and which paintings were collected together. I had to make sure that I chose a room in which the paintings had interesting enough backstories that I could make interesting tattoos from them, as well as having quite a lot of skin visible, so I could actually have somewhere to put the tattoos. I eventually decided to go with Room 24, which is the International Ambition Space. If you want to read a bit more about that particular room, you can pause here and there's a little bit of text about it. And here are the 12 paintings in that room that I'm going to be reimagining. The first painting from this room that I modified was Jupiter and Antiope by Hendrik Goltzius. According to this myth depicted in the painting, Antiope, the beautiful daughter of King of Thebes, was surprised and seduced by Jupiter in the form of a satyr. She became pregnant and bore the twins Amphion and Zethus, who later killed the king's brother Lycus in revenge for his treatment of Antiope and took over the city of Thebes. Renaissance and Baroque paintings such as this one are usually packed with symbolic imagery, therefore I wanted to make sure I continued these motifs in the actual tattoo designs, especially the botanical imagery such as the grapes, apples and pears, as these all express fertility, so I decided to add some more fruit onto Antiope to further foretell her future pregnancy. There are also inverted slippers and a chamber pot there in the bottom right, if you can just make it out, it's a bit dark, which represent the female sexual organs, which also link with the fruit that are also associated with this. Again, I based both of the tattoos based on the myths depicted in the painting and their own individual lives. For this piece, I really tried to ensure that the tattoos fitted in seamlessly with the contrast of the painting, to make it look as realistic as possible and to blend in with Goltzius's lights and dark resemblance to Caravaggio. If we zoom a bit into Antiope's feet, you can see that there's rope tattooed onto them, like they're bound together, which represents how after her family find out about the pregnancy, she's kind of not treated very well, she's abandoned, isolated, kept in this room basically. Apart from this, most of her body is adorned in flowers and animals, just to represent how beautiful she was. I tried to focus a lot of it on nature. But when you look closer, you can see some animals that aren't as beautiful, I guess. They're kind of a bit violent and vicious and scary, which I was hoping it would show that the story isn't just how it seems. From this pregnancy, she suffers a lot from this. It isn't just all fun and games. And then actually on the body of Jupiter, you've got a portrait tattoo of Juno, who again was his sister/wife, a bit like Zeus and Hera over there. She was represented by the figure of a peacock a lot, so that's why I've kind of merged her face with the peacock. And you've also got the eagle and the skull. Jupiter's famously represented by an eagle, and he had a lot to do with the Roman wars, so he was responsible apparently for a lot of death. This is a piece that I chose to exhibit for interim. To emulate the same environment that the original painting would be present in, I decided to frame it in an ornate golden frame upon a deep green wall, giving it some National Gallery vibes. I feel like the pillars really helped to portray this as well, the way it's positioned centrally between them. In interim, the point came up about the research behind each of the tattoos and how it wasn't inherently obvious at first glance. Due to this, I'm working on a kind of exhibition book with extra information that people can read if they fancy it, about what the tattoos symbolise, etc. And also each painting will have a small sign by it with the title, the original artist, and a brief description of the piece to give the audience some kind of idea what's going on if they don't fancy going through a book about it, which is fair enough. The second piece of Room 24 that I began working on was Saint Sebastian by Gerrit van Honthorst. This painting is of Saint Sebastian, who was a Roman centurion who converted to Christianity, which was a massive no-no back in the day. Due to this, the Roman emperor ordered Sebastian's fellow soldiers to tie him to a post and shoot him with arrows. Due to his devotion to his religion, I decided to cover his body in Christian-themed tattoos featuring images of Jesus, Virgin Mary, the cross, the dove, the praying hands, all the big ones. Also, due to Sebastian's involvement with converting prisoners to Christianity, I chose to draw his tattoos in the black and grey style, as this originally developed in prison, so I thought it'd be an interesting tie. Also, to incorporate the whole prison thing more, I positioned a real-life prison tattoo on his stomach, which also had themes of Christianity within. There you can see, the real tattoo. In this piece, I wanted to keep his hands, neck, and face clear of tattoos, so that all his Christian devoted tattoos could be hidden within clothes, similar to Japanese bodysuits that can be concealed to fit in with social norms. So in this case, Sebastian would wear clothes to conceal his religion from everyone else. The only tattoo on him that doesn't have any religious significance is the Plague Doctor design on his left thigh, made to signify that Sebastian was thought to be a defence against the plague, especially during the medieval times. So that's about it. Thank you very much for watching.